Legend Story Studios just announced the Jarl Vetreidi Armory deck, and I wanted to give you my thoughts and opinions on this. Now, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. The biggest thing you need to know is that this is a new chapter of a more premium Armory deck that we're seeing from Legend Story Studios, as said in their product sheet. Who knew I could read? So, in the product sheet, it says, hey, this is a new chapter in a premium Armory deck series. So, in my opinion, in the beginning, they were reprinting a bunch of older heroes with newer cards, and the Armory decks were $40 a piece. You know, KO, Dash, and what have you, right? Bolton and what have you, and Azalea. I think that might have been all of them. But anyway, you had them for $40. They contained 0 legendaries, and they contained about 5 to 8 majestic cards. Now, this deck, Jarl Vetreidi, that's coming out in November 2024, it has a $60 price tag, so it's $20 more, a premium, right? But you're getting 1 legendary and 23 majestics, which is pretty wild. So, like, a third of the deck, or maybe a little less, a little more, has majestic cards that you don't have to spend as much to upgrade in the future, which I think is really, really good. Especially when you're going against a bunch of other people in your local armory who have just min-maxed their deck out to the fullest. They have full legendary gear. This is nice to where you're put on more of an equal footing with them. And I like the whole concept of a premium product, right, is really smart here. And I've been saying this for a while. If you put out a product, if you're going to try to have intentions of getting more players interested in your product, like onboarding, right? You want to have the cheapest hell of product ever. You want to have the cheapest product for onboarding only. If you were doing a convenience good, which is what the Armory deck series are, it's a convenience product. You can charge a premium that's more money than like the $40 min range, right? $40 is a little weird area, right? The $60 plus point for a premium convenience product is a really good play here. And in my opinion, when you put out a product line, you want to try to go either end of the spectrum, right? You don't want to try to go middle ground. Either make it cheap as hell to try to onboard, or make it a premium, really good convenience good that people are going to have to spend a little bit more on, but they get a quality product at the end of the day, which is what this is. I applaud Legend Story Studios for increasing the price point. I know that sounds crazy, but $60 and you get 1 legendary, which is 1 more legendary than you got from the previous product, and you get like 15 more majestics. That is beautiful, in my opinion. So I really like, and I've been saying this for a while. I think that the $40, $30, $55 price, or no, maybe $50 to 40 to 30, that price range is just too awkward of a price range, right? If you're going to spend money, might as well have a premium all-encompassing product. And overall, man, the artwork is badass. I think that this is going to sell very well just from the artwork alone. I mean, Mangle was one of the most visceral arts of Flesh and Blood. Just so so awesome, where he's got the big pike or whatever with the helmet on, and you see the guy's head like back with the blood squirting out. It's it's an amazing artwork, and this caters to the primary demographic of Flesh and Blood. I think you're going to see a lot of people buy this just for just the badass nature of this. I hope to see more cards like this in the future, more heroes in general that are just badasses, right? That have that real just awesome nature to it, right? I think that is really core to what Flesh and Blood is. And overall, I think that just because that this appeals to one market, of course you're going to make a bunch of heroes for a bunch of different people. That's all good, but this is really what resonates to me, man. I'll tell you, and I think it's going to resonate to a lot of people. Then I want to talk about the convenience good aspect of this. Now, in my opinion, for the Armory deck series, right? I'm happy to see that in the past we had the older heroes, and then now we're having it seems like just brand new heroes. But this is a convenience product overall, in my opinion. This is a good where you go into the local game store, you're like, man, I just gotta work. It's been 2 months since I played Flesh and Blood. Haven't had the time. Now I have some time. Oh, I don't have a deck to compete with. I'm in the local game store. Armory is firing in 30 minutes. Well, I can't play. And then the store owner says, no, bro, you can play. Buy this Armory deck on the shelf, and you can just open it and play, right? And as a convenience product, it should be all encompassing, in my opinion, especially if you have the $60 price tag. Honestly, I think this could be changed to even a $70 or $80 price tag. With 23 Majestics, that's a ton. When you open a booster box, you only get 5 to 6, and you have the chance for a legendary, but this has a legendary in it, and it's an all-encompassing deck. So overall, you have that aspect, right? But there's a couple other things I think that this needs, right? The first is a deck box, man. Just opening this for $60 and having like a saran wrap deck. Come on, man. Like, put it in a deck box. Have Jarl's face on it. That would be cool. Like a deck box of the hero. Also, sleeves. In the deck, I think this should have a plastic deck box that has the hero on it. It should have the cards in it, and it should have the sleeves inside that fit all of the cards and the sleeves together. Also, I really hope this has a sideboard. I hope there's sideboard. I know that that's a little bit complex, but hey, if you're buying an Armory deck and you're competing in an Armory, you should know what, equipment is. And even maybe, here's extra bonus points. If you put in like 10 sleeves for the equipment, and then that are different color than the normal sleeves, that would be even great. And even bonus points, if you put a different sleeve for the tokens as well, that would be pretty badass too. That's a premium product. So sleeves, I think, are definitely good to add to this product, as well as, a sideboard. Add the sideboards, add the tokens, because if you're going against the big thing is arcane, man. You need your no rune. I know it's annoying to put the no rune in, and I know the no rune has been printed in a lot of other products, but if you're going against certain matchups, you need the fucking no rune to have even a chance to get like good percentages, right? So that's really my opinion there. I mean, you could also add a bunch of other peripherals like dice and counters and what have you, and different things. I think those would be nice too. But ultimately, again, deck box, sleeves, sideboard. That's what I want. As long as that's in there, I think that adds more, just a convenience good. Again, you're going to a game store, you just want an all-encompassing box. You pay $80, you get a box, you open it, you sleeve up the cards, you play. You don't want to have to buy the box, buy a deck box, buy a pack of sleeves. It just is an awkward thing there. I want to also mention that this really opens up ice. And this is a really great way to put supplemental product logic into a new product. I really love that aspect, because currently with the core sets, you had these expandable slot, and that's where you had the supplemental, like just fill in here, where you can update the meta and put in new heroes and what have you. But having it a separate box and just putting it out into the market, I think is really smart. I mean, Legend Story Studios could even have like 10 of these in waiting, right? And then when a hero living legends, right? And let's say the lightning hero living legends, and there's no lightning hero, so the lightning cards are all like not usable, then Legend Story Studios can be like, okay, well, this hero that we have in waiting can be released in like 6 months. Like, let the meta, change a little bit before you put lightning back in. I think that's what they did with ice, and I like that. It's really nice to just give an option to put the card pool out there. Like, ice was not used for the last year or something, and now a hero comes in and all those cards are viable once again. It's just a beautiful way to add life to those cards. And then I want to delve into the equipment destruction. So equipment destruction is interesting. We haven't seen too much of it in the last year, I'd say. Bright lights we saw, I think it was a dash card, a mechanologist card. Man, T-Bone. T-Bone was a big one. That one was really good at equipment destruction, but we haven't seen too much else that's like very consistent, if you will. This deck is pretty badass because if you think about it, it has a one card that I think it's a legendary card, so you only have one in your deck. But if you pull it turn one and your opponent has a Spring Tunic, you can literally just put a -1 counter on it and destroy the Tunic turn one. I think that with more sets and more cards that come out, Tunic is going to be under fire, right? Right now, Tunic has been just, strolling along. You can't do anything. They're going to gain 4 resources over the course of the whole game in, a competitive nature. But when you have these new cards coming out that have really good equipment destruction, where you can just kill a Tunic turn one and your opponent has no value, I think that you're going to see a reshift in people's minds in the competitive player community of like, well, should I really be running Tunic if it can just be destroyed turn 1 or turn 2 or turn 3 with just one card to put a -1 counter on it? And it'll be interesting to see if there's other equipment destructions for other classes that come out that do that is going to put a lot of pressure on Spring Tunic. And for a while now, people have been bitching about the price of Spring Tunic. Like, oh, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. And it has some merit. I'm not going to lie. It has some merit. It's one card that you can put in any deck since it's generic, so it's no big deal. But it does command a higher price tag. That's how it is. But when you add in more equipment destruction, you're going to decrease the player value of the Spring Tunic, which I think is smart, because then less Tunics are needed, and which results in less bitching, right? And I'd love to see a deck like this have like 10 or 15 extra tweaks to it and then win some tournament. That's going to be some major news. If you get like a pre-con deck, a pre-constructed, classic constructed deck of the Armory deck, and you are able to just tweak it a little bit and then play in even what is it? Not nationals, but even if it won like a battle hardened or something or something like that, it would be really nice to see, because then it adds that credence of this game is accessible. You can buy an intro product, even if it's $60 or $80, it's no big deal, and you can just easily tweak it a little bit and have a chance at winning one of the big tournaments. Something else, just a little bit to note, is if the Majestic equipment is just a one-of that hasn't been printed before, it's going to be a little awkward, because if there's a legendary equipment and there's a Majestic equipment and those are just one-ofs in the box, then aren't those Majestic equipments kind of like the legendary because they're printed the same amount? And maybe Legend Story Studios knows this, and they're going to reprint all the Majestic equipment in a subsequent product in the future. So they're like, oh, okay, the legendary is going to be really legendary, and we're only going to have X amount in the wild, and then these Majestics are going to be on our reprint list. But it's just kind of an interesting thing to think, because if the Majestics are printed the same amount as the legendary, in a sense, the Majestics have the same print run as the legendary, which really counteracts the whole rarity aspect of a legendary card. If that makes any sense. It's like if you took any of the other Armory decks, right, and you just made the Majestic card that's printed, that's new, a legendary, right? Those could have just been labeled legendary because they're just one-ofs. So it's just it's an interesting facet to really think through. So I think that's really all of my important information to relay about this. I think it's really great to see how they're making a more premium product. I just want to go harp on that and ramble on in the end. But that's my general comments on this. But I like that it's more premium. I think that when the other heroes and everything were printed and they were the heroes that were in other products, it was a little bit of a, well, why should I just buy the singles I need, and they had a couple extra cards, 5 extra, 6 extra, 7 extra, but having 23 Majestics one legendary. That is a good product. It's really nice to see. And it feels a lot more like, hey, this is an alternative to just, gambling on a booster box. It's like you could gamble on a booster box, or you could buy just a new hero with a bunch of cards that you can only get in that product. It's more of like a safe bet, if you will. And I look forward to seeing more heroes like this. And it seems like that's where Legend Story Studios is going. They said this is a new premium chapter in the Armory Deck series. So if the Armory Decks has a series, then the first series of decks were like, previous heroes. This new series is premium decks. And in my opinion, I think that this is all just a really great example of how Legend Story Studios innovates. They start with something, they look how the market interacts with it, they look at what's good, they look at what's bad, and they tweak it and they make it better. This is a prime example of that. And this is why they're labeling it a new chapter. It's like, hey, we learned from all the decks in the past. Here's what we're doing. Like, people want a more premium product. And I said that in the past in other videos. It's like the middle ground is kind of weird. If it's a convenience good, you want it higher price. You want, good quality stuff in it. And we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for how this evolves in the future. And not only is it a more premium product, but it's nice that it's a new hero and it's a bunch of new cards that you can play with a card pool that had been gone extinct for the last year, where you couldn't play Ice for the last year. So Ice Earth is now back on the menu. And the hero ability, I think, is pretty fair. Where you need equipment zones on your opponent in order to get the frostbite tokens over, where Oldhim was just online from turn one. I think that the deck is gonna be really good. I mean, Ice overall can just save you so much damage from your opponent. Even just putting 1 or 2 frostbite tokens, your opponent really has to think through what they're doing before they play out their hand. So that's about it. Let me know what you think. Cheers.